Thumbs up to rural Nevada, everywhere in Nevada. Woo!
Can you hear me?
We see and hear you.
Woo! There we are. Technology at work. Hi, everyone. All my cousins in Nevada.
So welcome to rural Nevada. We appreciate this so much. We're glad you're here. We'll just do a couple little things so you kind of get a little idea. I've told you, say we're ready for questions. We're dealing with 16 unique locations around Nevada today. We've got one location in Utah, and we will go through and get to every question that we possibly can for as many, for as much as time allows. And then have you ever seen anything like this?
Oh yeah.
So we will do that when we get near the end. Time to finish up the last question. Any closing remarks? But for everybody, I would like to say Kamala Harris is a U.S. Senator from California since 2017. Was previously the District Attorney of San Francisco from 2004 to 2011, and then Attorney General of California from 2011 to 2017. So Senator Harris, welcome to Nevada.
Hi, everyone, and thank you. And thank you for your time on this Sunday afternoon and for all of the leadership that everyone is providing and all the work you're doing. You know, as a Californian, I think of you guys as my first cousins, and just want to say hello and also congratulations to all of the leaders who did so much to accomplish so much in your last legislative session. I know that there are a lot of folks who are a part of this gathering today who really pushed through the accomplishments that your legislature achieved. And so I say congratulations to you. And okay, perhaps I'll start now with a couple of thoughts I have, and then I really would like to get into a discussion, because I will tell y'all, I do fully intend on winning this election. But for me, the measure of our success will equally be not only that, but that at the end of this process that we are relevant. And one of the best ways for me to ensure that is to make sure, especially at this phase of the campaign, that I'm listening as much, if not more, than I'm talking. So if you don't mind, I'll just start by sharing a couple of my thoughts, and then let's just get into a conversation, because I'd love to hear from everybody. Okay, good. So listen, you know, we've done a lot of work together, many of us over the years. One of the things that we fought shoulder to shoulder, arm in arm, was around the foreclosure crisis that hit Nevada in a profound way. It hit California in a profound way. I was Attorney General for 2 terms in California, and we worked side by side against some of the most powerful opponents that anyone could have, which were the 5 big banks of the United States. You guys may remember that during those years, Catherine Masto, of course, was your Attorney General, and she and I worked and really were in battle around fighting for the homeowners of Nevada and California. And I got to know a lot of the issues that impact Nevada frankly, through that experience, because it was about listening to and talking with homeowners and talking with families and talking with people who are invested in their communities and did not want to leave those communities. So when I think about the issues as we go forward, it is through the lens always for me of thinking about how plans, policies, issues impact real people in their daily lives, in their everyday lives. And so for that reason, I actually asked our political director to take the time to travel. He actually, I think he clocked nearly 1,000 miles and visited 10 counties in rural Nevada. I'm told, I believe I was the first presidential candidate in the 2020 cycle to visit northern Nevada. And those kinds of, that kind of work for me is because I want to make sure that we are on the ground, that we are present, and that we are listening. When I think about the issues that impact us in terms of the election and the politics of this election, listen, I think we all know this is an inflection moment in the history of our country. This is a moment in time that is requiring us each to look in a mirror and ask a question, and that question being, who are we as a country? And I think we all know part of the answer to that question is we are better than this. And so this is a moment in time that is requiring us to fight for the best of who we are, and fight we will. I come from a background of fighters. My parents they met when they were actively involved in the civil rights movement in the 1960s. I joke that I grew up surrounded by a bunch of adults who spent full time marching and shouting about the thing called justice. And when I think about the history of our country, I think we all know that the achievements we have gained have been because people have been prepared to fight for the best of who we are. And it's a fight born out of loving our country and knowing what is possible and believing in what is possible. I think about my priorities through the fact that the vast majority of us have so much more in common than what separates us. You know, we've heard from the current occupant of the White House, you know, over the last years, but in particular just in the last couple of weeks, you know, just continuously trying to divide and separate Americans. And I just reject that wholeheartedly and outright. And part of how I think about it is this: the vast majority of us have so much more in common than what separates us. And I know it to be true. And I know it to be true based on what I call the 3 o'clock in the morning thought, which is when we wake up in the middle of the night thinking about that thing that's worrying us. For the vast majority of Americans, that thought has to do with one of just a very few things: our personal health, the health of our children, or our parents. For so many, can I get a job, keep a job, pay the bills by the end of the month, retire with dignity? For our students, can I pay off those student loans? For so many families, can I get my family member off their opioid addiction? For so many in our rural communities, can I get broadband and access to the internet? For so many in our rural communities, what are we going to do about these hospitals that are closing down, and accessibility to things that we need every day? So when I think about the priorities of our country, I really do think of it through the lens of not only the commonalities between us, but also about just the basic things that keep people up at night or wake them up in the middle of the night that need to be solved. And that's why I have a plan that deals with everything from what we need to do around healthcare to what we need to do to pay teachers their value, what we need to do around dealing with the climate crisis, which we know is real, everything that we need to do around getting people an extra $500 in their pocket at the end of every month for families that are making less than $100,000 a year, what we need to do to help our farmers and have trade policy that understands their needs and their concerns and their value. But these are the things that I think about. I think about what wakes people up in the middle of the night, especially our seniors, which is knowing that they may not be able to pay for all of the medication that they need because it's so expensive because of what the pharmaceutical companies have been doing. So these are some of the issues that I'm thinking about. I have a plan for. I care deeply about, and I'm happy to answer any questions. And again, I just want to thank everybody here, and I hope to earn your support. Thank you.
Well, thank you. And we're just going to keep moving right along. We have a group in Southern Nevada at the Las Vegas Indian Center that has a question for you. So I'd like to invite them on right now.
Please.
Hello, thank you for joining us. The question we have is, how do you expect to appeal to Native American voters? Collectively, our community is concerned with your record on Native issues. For example, your voting record, your writing over 15 land to address objection letters to the BIA in opposition to California tribes, and most recently, unsuccessfully trying to undermine the sovereignty of the Blue Lagoon Rancheria people. We're alarmed. What is your response to this?
I have a long history of working in alignment and as an ally and a friend of the Native American the tribes and the councils in California. I have long been a defender of sovereignty. I have worked with California tribes for years, and in fact have the support of many who I've worked with over the years. This has been a big issue for me, frankly, which is what I need to do through my voice to make sure that we always respect the sovereignty of the tribes. Now, I was Attorney General of California for many years, for 2 terms. I had many clients that were state agencies, and in court had to defend them as the lawyer for those agencies. But in terms of my personal capacity as Attorney General, I have always used my voice in a way that has been about supporting tribal sovereignty and doing what we need to do to make sure that we not only respect sovereignty, but also that we not in any way take away from all that has been understood to be rightfully in the possession and in the jurisdiction of our tribes. And I invite you to talk with the tribal leaders that I have worked with, the various chairmen and chairwomen that I've worked with in California.
And we really appreciate that, and we can connect the campaigns so that the conversation can continue. So we really appreciate that. And right now we are going to drive all the way across Nevada to Elko, Nevada for a question out in Elko.
Okay, great.
Hello, I'm Ed Nickel. Higher education is critical to my point of view. I'm a retired college instructor. I worked in a community college that covered 55,000 square miles in rural Nevada. Money helps. Money helps with tuition. Money helps with those students that are trying to get into those colleges and have the resources and so on. But money isn't the whole problem. Rural students that are helping on a farm that can't leave where the family farm is short one worker. A single parent who cannot get away from work schedule and children and so on. How do we address the needs so that all of the young people in America have an opportunity to move and get ahead? Thank you.
Right. Well, one of the issues that we need to do is for rural America, and frankly, one of my highest priorities was what we need to do around broadband, because to your point, it is an issue that affects our students' ability to learn, adults and those who want to carry on with their professional development, their ability to have access to the tools that will help them be able to qualify for the certificates that bring them a job. And broadband is a very big part of it. It's a big part of access in terms of those who want to start small businesses and entrepreneurs who cannot possibly be competitive and do business without broadband. So that is one of my highest priorities, not to mention the connection between broadband and what we need to do around our rural communities and helping with telemedicine and all that can provide around giving relief where hospitals have closed down. I know that in Nevada, for example, there have been a number of closures of hospitals in rural America because of the issue of the way that they're being funded. And that's got to definitely change, which is that we have to have and increase the reimbursement rates for Medicare in rural hospitals so that those hospitals do not have to close down. But as it relates to our young people, those young parents that you're describing, we have to make it easier for them. Because you're right, they're waking up in the middle of the night trying to figure out how they're going to make ends meet, how they're going to be able to take care of their children. And we need to make sure that the public colleges and community colleges accommodate all learners. And it is not only about what I am supporting and what I say we need to do around free community college and debt-free college, but also what we need to do around flexible hours and making it easier for all of our students and young adults and older adults to actually be able to learn. Because, you know, here's the thing, and I think you know this, it is estimated that over the next 15 years, up to 40% of the jobs that currently exist will no longer exist. We have to be in the business of training the American workforce. And where that's going to happen, a large part of that is going to be in our community colleges. And so there has to be support from the federal government to allow as many who want to learn and go to those places to learn to be able to have access.
Thank you. And now we're going to bring in a question from right here in Douglas County where we're hosting this. So who's ready in Douglas? Yeah. Go ahead.
Hi, Senator Harris. This is Deborah Chang. I'm currently relocating from South San Francisco to Wellington, Nevada, here in Douglas County. My question for you is, as you may know, the U.S. is one of only 2 countries that allows pharma companies to market directly to patients, with all but one big pharma company spending more money on marketing than R&D. To bring down the costs of prescription drugs in the US, do you think that the laws that allow direct-to-consumer drug marketing should change?
I'm so sorry, we lost the connection for a moment. Do you mind restating the question?
Okay,
Sure.
we're back.
Okay, sorry. The US is one of only 2 countries that allows pharma companies to market directly to patients, with all but one big pharma company spending more money on marketing than on R&D. To bring down costs of prescription drugs in the US, do you think the laws that allow direct-to-consumer drug marketing should change?
I do. I mean, for a number of reasons. If you look since at least the 1980s and the 1990s, one of the things that happened is that the pharmaceutical companies got a tax break, and they're able to advertise on television with huge tax breaks. And that needs to end. I actually have a plan that is about not only ending that, but also requiring that pharmaceutical companies charge a fair price, and we're going to set that price through HHS under my administration based on what is the average of the price that's being charged for the same drug in other countries. Because as you and I both know, as we all know, and it really is a shame that the United States government, under the leadership that we have seen recently, is allowing American consumers to pay more for the same drug than other countries are allowing for their people. That's crazy. And so what I plan on doing is putting in place a system where we will set fair prices for pharmaceuticals and for prescription drugs. And if we cannot get the Congress to act, I'm prepared to take executive action and do a number of things. One, allow the importation of drugs from Canada, right? That we can import Canadian prescription drugs. I'm prepared to require that we put in place an attorney general who will hold the pharmaceutical companies accountable, like I did when I was attorney general, and going after pharmaceutical companies that are taking advantage of consumers and seniors. And then 3, I'm prepared to actually take the patents from pharmaceutical companies that actually their research was funded by the federal government, take those patents if they fail to bring their prices down to a fair price. It's a very big issue. And as we all know, we have people in our country, we have diabetes patients, 1 out of 4 who can't afford their insulin. There is a drug in a syringe that can save the life of someone who is OD'd on opioids, and that syringe can cost up to $4,000. We have seniors around the country who are either splitting their pills, cutting them in half to extend the prescription, or making decisions about whether they can eat or buy their medication. It is morally wrong, and we can actually do something about it. But we've got to hold the pharmaceutical companies accountable, and we cannot be afraid of them and be in the pocket of them, which is what we have seen in terms of the people who have been leading or supposed to lead on this issue.
Thank you for that. And now we're going to move out to Fallon, Nevada, out in Cantaloupe country. So Fallon, you're on.
Thanks, Kimmy. This question comes from Sharon. Senator Harris, how will you deal with Donald Trump's tactics of intimidation and false facts?
Great. I don't see anyone. I don't know can you guys hear me? Hello?
Yes, Senator, we can hear you.
You can hear me? Okay. I just see the name Kelly. Okay. I'll just keep talking if you can hear me and see me. So listen, there's no question that this president is not burdened by facts or honesty and truth-telling. And how do we hold him accountable? Well, we need to successfully prosecute the case against 4 more years of a Donald Trump administration. And as far as I'm concerned, there's a pretty good rap sheet on which to do that. We have a current president of the United States who campaigned on all kinds of promises that he made to working families and American families. He said he was going to, take care of everyone from auto workers to farmers, but yet he put in place a so-called trade policy that was trade policy by tweet that has caused farmers in various regions of our country to look at the potential of bankruptcy because their markets have been cut off from them. We're looking at the potential that as many as 700,000 auto workers in the United States may lose their jobs by the end of the year. We are looking at the fact that they passed a tax bill that benefited the top 1% and the biggest corporations of our country, instead of helping working families who right now in America, almost half can't afford a $400 unexpected expense. Who in America today, in 99% of the counties in our country, if you're a minimum wage worker, you can't afford a 1-bedroom apartment. So there's a pretty good case to prosecute against 4 more years of Donald Trump as it relates to what he has not done to take care of and lift up working families in America. But I'd say that the other piece of this also is that the next, that's about turning the page, but we also have to write the next chapter. And the next chapter in our country that I know we're going to write together has to be also about unifying the country, about bringing people together, about really re-emphasizing the commonalities between us. Like I talk about my 3 a.m. agenda, the things that wake people up in the middle of the night that are common issues, common concerns that we must address in a way that is not only about solving people's problems, but also bringing the country together. The vast majority of us have so much more in common than what separates us. And we need real leadership in our country. And we need a president of the United States who understands that her greatest strength is not who you beat down, it's who you lift up.
Excellent. We really, really appreciate that. And now we are going to go out to Dayton, Nevada, just east of Carson City. You're on, Dayton.
Hey, Kimmy, here's Joe. Hi.
Hi, guys.
We Nevadans love Californians, just wanted to say.
It's mutual.
Okay. The problem with Iran seems to be escalating. And if in 2020 we are in another war, what is your plan to mitigate this so we aren't in another forever and ever war?
Well, I couldn't agree with you more that the part of the problem is we are in these forever wars and we got to stop and we got to get out of them and we have to know when it's time to leave. That's why I feel the way that I do about our troops in Afghanistan. It's time to pull them out. This president, we just recently celebrated the independence of our nation, July 4th. And he wants to have, a military parade as though it's his birthday, not understanding it's the birthday of the nation. And you want to talk about military? Well, let's talk about military families. Let's talk about the fact that on your point about Iran, this is about his ego. It is not about working with our allies. It was about pulling out of a deal that actually was well negotiated and being complied with. And now everything that we have seen happen was pretty predictable. And I'll tell you, we have to have an understanding that we can no longer tolerate a so-called commander-in-chief who does not understand that his highest responsibility is to have our nation's security and the security of our homeland as his top priority versus his personal ego. We've got a commander-in-chief right now who, on the fact of Russia's interference with the election of the president of the United States, prefers to take the word of the Russian president over the word of the American intelligence community. On the subject of an American student who was tortured and later died, prefers to take the word of a North Korean dictator over the word of the American intelligence community. On the subject of a journalist who was assassinated, a journalist who had American credentials, prefers to take the word of a Saudi prince over the word of the American intelligence community. We need a new commander-in-chief.
Hear, hear, hear. So now we are going to, go to the capital of Nevada in Carson City. Are you ready with a question in Carson City?
Hi, yes, do you hear me?
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay.
Hi.
Hi, Kamala.
Good to see you.
As an accountant, an issue that I know about that most people don't seem to even talk about is taxable Social Security. There was the law in 1986, first passed, made Social Security taxable if a individual made $25,000 a year, or if a couple made $32,000 a year. And those limits haven't changed since 1986. And I have seen, you know, older people that are making these low income, they take an extra money out of their IRA to buy something, and then all of a sudden they're facing a huge tax bill. This is patently unfair, and yet we give a tax break to corporations. And nobody ever, every time the tax bill, any tax policy is brought up, you know, we're going to fix the alternative minimum tax that helps high incomers. We don't even talk about this. And I just, it needs to be addressed.
I agree with you. I agree with you. And, you know, let's also just connect this issue to to that tax bill that this president and administration passed, benefiting the top 1% and the biggest corporations of our country. You know, last year, 60 of the richest corporations in our country paid no taxes. Who on this call paid no taxes last year? And so to your point, the rules are continuously written in a way that is not benefiting working families, people who have worked their whole lives, who have paid into Social Security and should be able to retire with dignity and without a concern about how they're going to be able to get through the end of the month, much less the end of the year. I couldn't agree with you more. And about that tax bill that they passed, part of what we've all been hearing is that one of the ways they plan on perhaps dealing with this $1 trillion deficit that they created because of that tax bill is to cut and make cuts to Social Security. Well, not on my watch. I will not allow it. Moreover, I'll say this, we need to strengthen Social Security, and I'm prepared to do that by raising the cap on who pays into Social Security, because it doesn't make any sense that the richest people aren't paying proportionate to what those who don't have as much money are paying into Social Security. So that's part of it. We also need to say, hey, look, why should CEOs be taxed at a lower rate than working families? It's just not fair. And so we've got a lot of work to do. I am a proponent of what we need to do to raise taxes on the richest Americans, because we've got to get to a place where we agree that for too long we've been trying to support this budget on the backs of working people. And on the issue of Social Security, we should not ever be in a place of breaking America's promise to our seniors who have been paying into it during a lifetime of productive and hard work and deserve to be able to retire, like I said, with dignity. And you know, this is the Republicans, frankly, want to raise the retirement age, and it's crazy. You know, if you look at folks who work hard, you know, as a friend of mine says, you know, people who have to take a shower after they come home from work, people like miners, people like farmers, you know, backbreaking work. The idea that we're going to raise the retirement age on them is absolutely unacceptable as far as I'm concerned. So I appreciate your point, and the taxing point is a very important part of it.
Excellent, thank you. And I do see a couple hands up. We have a few minutes left, so I'm going to see if we can grab them in here. Elko, are you ready with another question out there?
Sorry, I hadn't lowered the hand. We don't have a question.
Okay, do we have another question out in Fernley? We got a few minutes left.
Yes. What I want to ask. No, put it up here. Okay. Sorry. What I want to ask is, as president, what are you going to do about Americans voting, being clean of, I see that, being clean of interference from foreign and domestic tampering?
Yeah, it's a great question. So I serve on the Senate Intelligence Committee, in addition to Senate Homeland Security and Judiciary and Budget. But in the Intelligence Committee, I am often being briefed in what's called a SCIF, a closed door room, by the intelligence community. We can all believe what the intelligence community told us, which is Russia interfered in the election of the President of the United States. And they did it because, as a longstanding adversary, they decided that they wanted to hurt what is one of our greatest strengths, which is our belief and the integrity of our democracy. Knowing that one of the strongest pillars of our democracy that holds us up is free and fair elections. And so they purposely went at it. And I would caution everyone to listen to Christopher Wray, the head of the FBI, who I think it was last month, maybe the month before, told us, 2020, we're going to be attacked again. We should be very clear about that. And it's going to be a misinformation campaign. I've got a bill that is a bipartisan bill that would actually upgrade our infrastructure around election security. And Mitch McConnell won't bring it to the floor for a vote. So it's going to be incumbent on us as the leaders that are, everyone who's on this call, to make sure that we are really paying attention to getting people registered to vote, that we're making sure that they go to the polls, that we're clearing up the misinformation. That earlier question I thought was really very connected to the point you're raising, which is we have to make sure that we are fact checking and making sure that people know what's real and what's not real, because there's going to be a lot of mischaracterization about the truth being done to manipulate Americans, so that we start pointing fingers at each other, or that we just get so turned off by the process that people don't vote. And it's a big issue. It's a very real issue. And part of it is going to be that leaders, like everybody who's taking this time on your Sunday to be a part of this conversation, that we speak to all our neighbors and friends and coworkers and remind them to pay attention to facts, not fiction, and that there's so much at stake in this election.
So we want to say how much we really appreciate your time, taking the time with us today, and appreciate everything isn't perfect, but I can assure you out here in rural Nevada, we are real. And I think I can speak for everybody that we are really excited to have a Democratic president in 2020. And we really look forward to welcoming you directly and personally to rural Nevada. So thank you so much for your time.
Everybody here, thank you for your leadership. I look forward to listening. Thank you. Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Bye. Bye.